Well, it's 7:02, and it's time to begin the January 7th, 2020 meeting of the Radnor Township Planning Commission. I think the first order of business has to do with nomination of a chairman.
Megan Gonzalez and I met, and we would like to nominate John Lord as chairperson and Matt Golas as vice chair. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, I think. So let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we're going to go a little bit out of order on the agenda and go immediately to item 5, which is 117 South Radnor Road.
John, why don't we do the minutes and then do that?
Okay.
Right, just,
Does anybody have any changes, alterations, corrections to the minutes of our last meeting?
you accept the minutes.
We accept the meeting minutes as presented.
Do I hear a motion to accept the meeting?
She just did.
I didn't hear it, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Second?
Second.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, let's go to 117 South Radnor Road. I understand that the applicant wants to...
Hi, good evening. My name is George Brosman. I'm an attorney representing the applicant in this matter. Thank you for taking us first. I wanted to say that we would like to remove ourselves from the agenda this evening. It's come to our attention that there are a good number of neighbors that have interest in this matter, and we'd like to take a little more time to see if we can understand some of the concerns that they have. So I would ask that we be removed from the agenda.
Is there any timing issues?
Mr. Brosman, so we have till the 29th. If you, as we get closer, if you want to provide an extension, if needed, that'd be fine.
Yes, we'll provide one as we approach that date if it is needed.
I would expect that you'd be on the February agenda?
That would be up to the applicant. I would assume you'd be here on the February agenda.
We'd like to aim for that, but we'll have to see as we continue with dialogue where we stand, but we'll let the township know.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item is item number 3 on the agenda, 132 West Wayne Avenue. It's a zoning hearing board application that is per the ordinance and the statute is before the Planning Commission for any comment. So would the applicant come forward, please?
Evening, Nick Camilli representing the applicant. This is a matter that actually was before the zoning hearing board, and it was determined that it should come here first for comment. We went through pretty much most of the hearing at that time, and it was determined that since this is a land development or subdivision, which I don't necessarily agree with, but in the sake of convenience and getting the matter moving, we agreed to come here for comments from the Planning Commission. What's being proposed is an existing building. There's no addition going on in the existing building. It is in the R5 zoning district on West Wayne Avenue. If you may recall, I'll just throw out a little bit of a zoning map for you to see. Out here is Lancaster Avenue, South Wayne Avenue, the middle school over here in this area, West Wayne Avenue in this location. It's on West Wayne, so obviously on the corner is the post office. Then we have the library, then the ABC House, which I believe all of you should be familiar with, which is a house where about 9 or 10 students who go to Radnor reside who do not live in the township. 124 is a 4-unit apartment building, which is what is being proposed here. 128 is a single family, to the best of our knowledge. 132 is the existing property. 136 is an office. And then we go further up to a duplex, and then the condominiums up at West Wayne and Bloomingdale. And on the other side of the street, this is Zone CO on the other side of West Wayne, so we have offices on that location on the other side of West Wayne Avenue there. As you can see, this particular property, we're not planning any additions to it. It actually exists the way you see on this plan that's been provided. Currently, it is non-conforming in that it has an office use as well as one apartment above it. Back in the 1980s, Radnor permitted offices in the R5 residential district. They were considered kind of home occupation, professional office types. This is a non-conforming use in that there's an office located in this property as or located on several of the properties along West Wayne Avenue. The proposal here is to turn it to a conforming use that is multiple family use, in this instance a 4-unit apartment, which is permitted in this district. The reason that we have to go before the zoning hearing board is that the current property, as you see here, is non-conforming for a multiple family use, in that it is 80 feet wide and the zoning requirement is 100 feet, and it's also non-conforming as to setbacks as far as the existing structure is concerned. So for those reasons, we proceeded to the zoning hearing board for relief. It has sufficient parking for the use. There was a question, Barron's in the audience, and he raised a question regarding required buffer. I did get an opinion from the zoning officer that a required buffer is not required in this district because the buffer was applicable when you have more than one multiple dwelling group, and in this instance, there's only one. So the relief that we're asking before the zoning hearing board is that we have a non-conforming lot. We're asking for relief from the lot width requirement, since we're providing or requesting multiple family, and also as to the setback, side yard setback requirements, since the existing building is non-conforming, and as to that as well. Just to give you some view of the property, I don't know how well you can see it. It should be in your packet. This is the existing dwelling, and you see the driveway. This is West Wayne Avenue. This is just a closer view of the existing dwelling. Here's the parking in the rear. Since it has 4 units, it requires 8 parking spaces. I believe there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 provided right here in the rear. There are a couple that exist in the front, and that would be in the front yard setback, but it does provide for the required number of parking spaces in the rear as to the 8, which is 2 per dwelling unit. This gives you an overview of the site, as you see an aerial view, as you pull in and where the parking would be in the front, and then the parking in the rear. And so we're before the zoning hearing board, and the request that we proceed here as to recommendations or lack of recommendations, or however the Planning Commission wishes to proceed with this matter.
What's the, what's the building all the way in the back?
That's a garage or
It's
an
a
existing
garage.
structure.
And nothing is planned. I mean, you're not
Yeah, not-
moving anything,
Nope.
enlarging anything,
Yeah.
digging anything up.
Right.
No,
Right.
no,
There's no additions being proposed or anything of that nature.
and what's in here now? Graphic design?
Yeah,
company?
exactly, yeah, and there is an apartment on top.
And
Graphic
now-
design is CPA, Julian CPA. It used to be graphic design, I believe, now it's just Julian CPA practice.
Approximately the width of some of the other lots? It doesn't-
Yes, it is. If you look, and matter of fact, before the zoning hearing board, we went through a whole list of the properties in the existing lots, and you can see from this map, obviously the post office and the library are wider, but the ABC house is the same width, 124 is the same width, almost all of them are the same exact width as exist along West Wayne Avenue here.
I'll be the first to say, I don't know that I see any land use or subdivision issues here. I'm not, any, is there anyone here who would like to make public comment? Is there anyone here who would like to make public comment? Okay, come on forward, please.
Hi, Baron Gemmer, South Wayne Avenue. I own the property right here, about 300 to 400 feet from the. So I'll point out again. It's right on West Wayne there, right on the corner of Bloomingdale. As a little background, there were neighbors at the zoning hearing board meeting. I'm not sure they were aware that this meeting was going to take place, and I didn't contact any of them. So there may have been more folks with interest, but they'll just have to take it up at zoning hearing again, or when it comes back to you for land development. The reason I'm speaking here is because, to me, this is too dense. There's a lot of these properties on here, and if everyone turned into 4 apartments on a one-way street like West Wayne with a limited lot width, which is the big issue at the moment, I think that would be problematic. If the applicant really wants to convert this to residential, they can convert it to a 2-family residential, which a lot of these along there, as well as up on the Bloomingdale side, are, and there wouldn't be any relief required because the lot width for 2-family is 80 feet. And the setbacks are still 10 on each side, so there'd be no setback issue. Here you have a tremendous setback ask. It goes from, the required is 30, and I think one's 11 something, the other's a 28. So it's not trivial, the increase or actually the nonconformity that's being asked for compared to the non-nonconformity that exists right now, or that it would exist for 2-family. I personally, also in the front, I think I pointed this out at the zoning hearing board, that these parking spots would be in the front yard setback. I know Nick didn't mention those, only the 8. Also, I think if you do the measurements, the steps, which are longer than 3 feet, would also be included, so there'd be front yard setback required. I don't want to get into that administrivia for you. My point is, what you're looking at are existing plans, not proposed plans. Nick says nothing's going to be changed. This goes through land development. Things like this aisle having to become 2-way at 22 feet will come into play. These spots, these spots here aren't available. And also, I believe there'll be a 9th parking lot or 9th parking spot required because of the fact that these are on a private drive. My point in bringing that up is you're not seeing the full impact of what's taking place here. So I'll continue on, but my main point is ask you not to recommend approval of this because you're not seeing the full impact of it. It can't stay like this if it's going to go through land development. Stormwater comes into play. I assume these are valid parking spots in terms of their size, but the aisle certainly is. And if you have 4 apartments, this is going to need to be a 2-way aisle, and it's probably, I'm guessing, 11 or 12 feet, whereas Saldo would require 22 feet wide. And also, I don't think it's indicated on here, but there's some slope issues that if stormwater or parking needs to get into, there might be other relief required. So while the applicant is saying, oh, we just need the lot width as our main thing in the side yards, first off, I consider both of those to be important. But there are, I think, plenty of other things that are going to come up that you aren't even aware of that you're trying to make a recommendation on. So because of the fact that this isn't proposed plans, but it's really existing, I would ask that you recommend not, for the zoning hearing board, not to approve that conversion. Thank you.
Does the committee have any questions? Of the,
I have a question. So you can have 2 apartments here?
You can do a duplex, I believe. I'd have to look at the zoning code. You may have, if you look at the code, I believe, I have it. Yeah, the multiple dwelling, as well as a twin, two-family detached, which is a duplex, are all permitted in the zoning district. Our argument, this is an existing lot, therefore we should be permitted to use it for a permitted use, which includes a multiple dwelling. If you are looking at a two-family detached, which is the twin, you do only need 80 feet of lot width. And the question, and I believe the setbacks, looking at it, they're 10 feet required. I know we're close on the one side, so it may comply with the setbacks as well. But in that regards, yes, a duplex is permitted, as is multiple family. And if we were asking for a duplex, without looking at it that closely, it appears as if maybe zoning relief would not be required. I think that was your question, Steve.
Now I'm really confused.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm sorry.
you're asking for 4 units?
We're asking for 4, which is a multiple dwelling in the R5 zoning district, which the use is permitted,
Okay.
all right? As is a duplex, which they refer to as a two-family detached dwelling. The zoning code refers to as a duplex. For
So what is the variance you're requesting?
for multiple dwelling groups, you
Is it
need
just the setbacks?
for setback and the lot width. So we have the existing structure. Our argument for the zoning hearing board is that we already have an existing structure, and we already have an existing lot. But because that it is a multiple dwelling group, that is more than 2 units, we need relief on the lot width and on the setbacks, because there's more stringent requirements for that.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the lot allowable impervious, and they're at 34%, and they can go to 36%. That's just about 500 square feet. So stormwater management starts at 500. So they'd have to ask for the full max to have to go to stormwater to do anything. So that might not be a big of, did you look at the numbers? Did you run the numbers? But they'd have to ask for, they'd reach their maximum impervious at 500, which is stormwater at 500. Yeah, do you happen to know, Roger, if they're going to have to bring that driveway up for compliance?
We were not asked to look at this. This comes through the zoning office.
So really, just asking this another way, the use may be allowed, but 4 units is not allowed on this site.
That is accurate, unless, as I said, the argument for the zoning hearing board, this is an existing nonconformity. And we're asking them to approve the existing nonconformity, because there are also provisions in the zoning code regarding nonconformities and nonconforming lots.
And if you're going to change, from a procedural standpoint, if you're going to change anything with the building add-on or change the parking lot or whatever, obviously you have to go back through the process to get
Correct.
permission. And the parking lot in the back, that is non-pervious?
It's pervious, yeah.
It's-
It's paved.
It's paved?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
See, our position is we don't believe we're going to have to do anything to this site. You know, it has required parking spaces, and as I mentioned to you previously, I'm not even certain why we're before land development, but it was requested that we come here for your comments.
Nick, if you have to expand the drive to what, you said 22 feet? Okay. And you expanded it using impervious, then you'd still stay under the,
We
right?
may be able to expand it and still stay under the required 36%.
I'm still confused. Why did they send you,
No,
why did
no,
they
thank-
send you?
I haven't put a rule to it.
Nick, why are they making you come here for a subdivision? So, Mary, can you answer that question?
You're asking why they're a land development? They're not a subdivision.
Well, I thought that's why they came here.
We're land, I guess they're considering us a land development.
I think what he's saying is that the zoning hearing board thought that this would ultimately result in a land development, and for that reason, it needed to be seen by the planning commission before the zoning hearing board made the decision.
Not really. Yeah, it
I'm
was
kinda
more,
confused as to what-
they, I believe, the way, Kevin was there that evening, Kachansky, and it wasn't that we were going to add something or add paving or anything of that nature. It was more because he said it was multiple dwellings. Therefore, we had to go before land development, which, again, I disagree with, but the fact that it was a multiple dwelling, and we were converting it to a multiple dwelling, that we had to go to land development, even though we weren't touching it. We weren't touching the site.
I'm going to stick with what I said originally, because somebody made the determination that it was a land development. The planning commission, or the zoning hearing board felt that the planning commission should be reviewing it before the zoning hearing board makes a decision.
Well, there's a couple of items that occur to me. I mean, first, that I assume if Nick is correct, and they don't have to do anything to this place, not change anything, then we wouldn't see it again.
As far as I understand, that has not been the determination that's been made at the township level, that this will require land development approval because of the nature of the use.
That is kind of what Kevin said, that because of the nature of the use, it would require land development, even though we weren't touching the site. That was his determination that evening.
If I may suggest, that may be a red herring. They have an application before the zoning hearing board. The zoning hearing board send them back to you to take a look at the plan and make a recommendation. The decision as to whether or not this is a land development or not a land development is not one that we have to discuss or confront at this point. Right now, the question for the planning commission is whether you see, not whether they require additional relief, as Mr. Gemmer suggested, but whether you see any planning concerns with the relief they have requested. And if you can boil it down to that issue, I think it simplifies it for the planning commission.
And I agree.
Thank you.
I agree.
The issues keep popping up as I'm sitting here listening to everybody speak, and I think, well, we don't have a review. But then there's nothing to review because staff hasn't had a chance to review it because it's not before us in that capacity. So we're flying blind a little bit. I suppose that, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm somewhat comfortable with the notion that we don't see anything as it sits here presently before us that really implicates any land use or, well, it's no subdivision, but land use issues at this point in time. However, I think they would welcome any comments that we might have.
John, I'm kind of like you. I'm not really sure why it's in front of us. I just think that since
not doing any physical changes to the property, okay? I think that the zoning board has to determine whether or not the ultimate use of being a multi-unit facility, it's up to them to decide that. If they want to give them the variances and for use or whatever other things go with that, I don't know what we have to do with that, because, you know, like you said, we have nothing from staff telling us to look at it. So I think send it back to them and say, the way it sits physically, I don't have a problem with. Now, if problems arise because the ultimate use, that's a different issue. And that's kind of what I propose.
Okay, any other comments? Would anyone care to make a motion?
I move that I just said. Aye.
Mr.
Is the motion that the planning commission's remaining neutral in this application?
Yes,
Okay, we just want to be clear.
yes.
So, President Lord,
I'm
it will,
sorry.
Tricia's memo that will go to the zoning hearing board will state the planning commission, one sentence. The planning commission is neutral to this application.
Yes. Yes.
Clarification, let's re-vote on that, because I think at this end of the table seem to be questioning exactly what we're doing. Is it clear?
Well, I think it's clear, but I think it is a planning issue when you start changing a use to a multifamily. I mean, even though it's only 4 units, or it goes from 2 units to 4 units.
It's really a zoning question.
Well,
Yeah.
the zoning question, and
I understand
zoning comes
that-
back and says, you need to do this, this, and this, and then we have something to vote on. We really don't, we don't vote on uses. We don't recommendation on uses. That's not, I don't think, is part of our deal.
I would agree. I would just amend the memo to say we remain neutral because we don't have enough information. I feel like there's a piece of information that we're missing.
Well, it's not so much we don't have the information, is that we're only passing on the physical, what's there, okay? If the zoning board decides that they want them to use it for a different use, they give them the variance for that, then under that are probably going to come things that'll come back to us that we'll have to make a determination whether or not it's too small, too big, relative to what zoning. But as it sits right now, you know, I don't think we have anything to say, because we don't know what ultimately the zoning board's going to let them do.
Right, the use, this question of use, 2-family versus 2 apartments versus 4 apartments, I mean, that's really a zoning issue. They've got to deal with that. And so that's one of the reasons, I think it's probably the primary reason why we have, my thought is, and I think we're voting on, we're just going to stay neutral on this because we don't see anything in the things that are before us presently, we don't see anything that really implicates land use within the planning commission's purview. But in the zoning world, there must be many things to talk about, but it's really not for us to really
But
rule
Joe,
on that.
what happens if everybody else on the street says, well, he got to do it with 80 feet, now I want to do it, now I want to do it? Then that whole street turns into,
I think the
4 family
zoning
apartments.
hearing board has got to take that
I mean,
into
that's planning,
consideration.
isn't it? Then I think that goes back to planning, back to green.
My feeling is that's probably not something that's our concern at this point, because A, it's not in front of us. B, I do think that's more of a zoning issue. If they get multiple applications, they're going to first be going to the zoning hearing board on any of those types of applications, I would think, and they might bounce it back to us. But again, what if it comes back to us and it's the same situation? There's a piece of property, there's no ostensible changes to it whatsoever except the interior portion of it, and we see the same thing. It really has to go back to zoning. Maybe because of the nature of the changes here, there should be more, maybe the entire scheme of zoning in this particular area should be altered. I really don't know, but that has to come first in this, before we do anything.
I guess one of my thoughts is just to save time, that maybe the piece of information that I would be missing to give a recommendation would just be the full impact. I mean, it's coming before us to give an opinion on the use, and I think we can all say we remain neutral on the use because that's a zoning issue. But if we don't know for sure that if the multifamily is approved, that absolutely nothing would have to be done to the site. I guess that's the thing that keeps on coming up for me. I'm not convinced that the site would remain unchanged if it was changed to multifamily. And so that's the piece of information I feel like that's missing. So if you go back to the zoning board, they approve the multifamily, then it just gets bounced back to us if the site needs to be changed. So I guess that's what I'm saying is that if anybody has an opinion on whether, if the site needs to be changed, I think I do have an opinion about what I would recommend, and it wouldn't be neutral. But
Well, you don't know how it would be. We're speculating how it would be changed. Is that right? 'Cause we
they're
don't
saying
know
it
how
wouldn't be
might
changed at all.
That's right.
So if we just go based on that, we can say we remain neutral?
Yes.
Okay.
And then
All right.
Then any other changes, they have to come back.
Can I request, what was the vote on that motion? Was it
I
6 to 1?
think what, maybe we'll say it this way. We remain neutral due to the fact that as the physical property sits today, as an office use, we don't have an opinion. If the zoning board decides to change that use and allow them, and they have to make modifications, then it's got to come back to us. And then we'll have a determination of whether or not it's okay, I think. Mary?
I think you had a motion. I want to start with Megan and then dovetail into Charlie. I think you can be comforted by the fact that they're very, very close to the maximum impervious surface. And if they have to make changes on the property, they will require additional zoning hearing board relief. So the changes on the property would come before you at the land development stage, and if they need to widen drive aisles and increase the impervious surface, there would be another application for that. So,
And that's kind of what I'm saying. As it sits right now, I don't know how, I'm okay with that, because I don't know what ultimately they're going to do there or what zoning is going to allow them to do there. If they do have to make changes, then zoning is going to have to, then it's going to be back in front of us as a development.
and then said yet another way, maybe the planning commission is remaining neutral in this application based on their reliance on the applicant's statement that there will be no additional changes
Yes.
made on the property.
Yes.
Could you repeat that, solicitor?
So-
Can I make a comment? What if you asked for 10 apartments?
But that's not, they haven't asked, it's not, but that's not.
Yeah,
what's
but
in
they've
front
asked
of-
for
it's
more
not-
than
yeah, but
what's
that's not
allowed.
what's in front of us. Right now, we have in front of us is this plan. They're asking us to make a statement about what's in front of us, not what potentially can come in front of us. And if it changes and they want 10 or 20 or 120, it's going to come back in front of us, and we're going to say, hey, that's a little bit too much.
If
But
they
you're
ask for-
saying 4 is not coming back.
Well,
We don't have
that's
enough
not the
lot area
deter,
to do more than
That's
4
that's
anyway.
not what we're determining here.
that's not,
Can't do.
that's, at this point, that's not the determination by the township staff. But Stephen, if they came in with 10 apartments, their parking requirements would change, and that would be a different story. So Steve asked that I repeat that. So your motion would then be that the planning commission remains neutral in this application based on the applicant's statement that there would be no changes to the property as a result of this project.
Yes.
do
Actually,
we have a second?
could you change statement to representation?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It's,
Opposed? Steve, are you opposed? Steve's opposed.
Thank you.
Who's next here?
Next on the agenda is 147 Conestoga Road, minor final subdivision plan. All right, let me say that into the speaker. 117 South Radnor Chester Road, minor final subdivision plan. This was one that came, I'm
No,
sorry,
No, we,
Conestoga,
I'm sorry,
Conestoga Road.
147 Conestoga Road, minor final subdivision plan. Okay.
One thing the board, I think it was eventually sent to you, the zoning decision? Did you, everyone, okay. Because I made copies if you haven't seen it yet. This is for this project, 147. This is granted the zoning relief to permit. Charlie, you can have a copy if you don't have it.
Do you have an extra copy of that? I had mine and
I
I
do.
misplaced it somewhere.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
So this is at the intersection of Conestoga Road and Doyle Road. Up by, just to familiarize, if you're looking at the photograph here, up in this area, this is Conestoga Road, Lancaster Avenue. It ends about a block or 2 blocks up where it comes into Lancaster Avenue, and of course the farmer's market, the car wash, all in the corner there. Here's Doyle Road, here's Conestoga Road. This is the existing, there's an existing twin. The applicant has purchased half of the twin. The other half of the twin on this side is under different ownership. So the applicant has purchased half of the twin and this wide open lot that you see in this location. We went to the zoning hearing board. Initially, we had asked for putting a twin on the vacant lot area. We eventually modified that to just a single-family dwelling. So what we have here and what we received approval for is you have the existing twin, and relief was granted for the existing twin to be the same size from a lot area and lot width requirement as the twin on its other side. And we went through, you know, a number of items before the zoning hearing board showing how this all predated zoning for about 2 blocks here, and there were very narrow lots, and how it's very consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. What you're seeing here now is proposal for basically we already have an existing home, so we're asking for what in effect amounts to a 1-lot subdivision. This is the existing condition that you see here, Conestoga Road and Doyle Road. As I mentioned, this twin is included in the purchase. And if we go to the proposed lot line change, so the existing twin will be on this lot. The proposed single-family dwelling, and it's a single-family dwelling, would be on the corner lot of Doyle and Conestoga. This basically just shows the building envelope for that lot. We asked for no zoning relief on this lot. So we still have a 25-foot front yard setbacks, a corner lot, so we're showing 2 25-foot setbacks. We have the 10-foot side yard setback from the lot where the existing twin is located, and we have the required rear yard setback. Also, during the zoning hearing, we presented extensive testimony on how we have a bunch of non-conforming homes on Doyle Road, but again, we didn't ask for relief as to the front yard setback for those homes. We are proposing to keep the front yard setback, so you'll be limited to this lot where the single-family dwelling would be constructed, or this building envelope. There were some comments made, and we agreed to before the zoning board. One was to install sidewalks. There's no sidewalk on Doyle Road, but we're proposing to install a sidewalk on Doyle Road for the length of our property. The other was a concern about curb cuts. We are proposing to add one driveway for the existing twin, which currently does not have a driveway, and then for the proposed structure, the driveway would be on Doyle Road near the back of the lot there, as you see, in that location. Yeah, and there is an existing curb cut there that we're using. So what we're doing is we're adding one existing curb cut. We know we need the PennDOT permit in order to enter Conestoga Road. Conestoga Road is a state highway. Doyle Road is a township right-of-way. As to the comments, I don't believe any of the comments are cause of any concern for the applicant. The only one, I believe, on subdivision and land development in Gannett Fleming's letter, number 4 is the typical show us everything within 500 feet of the site. In this instance, we'd probably be up by West Wayne Avenue if we were showing everything within 500 feet. So we would be requesting a waiver on number 4, which is the one about showing all existing principal buildings, sewer lines, storm drains, and everything of that nature. So that would be the only waiver that we would be requesting. Everything else we would comply with. Roger mentions the Board of Commissioners can ask for additional right-of-way. We would not be in agreement with that, but again, that's something in the code. We already have existing right-of-ways on Doyle Road of 33 feet and on Conestoga Road, the state highway, of 50 feet. We are complying with those right-of-ways, and we have measured our setback requirements, front yard setback requirements from those required right-of-ways.
Mr. Cornelia, if I could.
Sure.
So just on item number 8, Conestoga Road is a major collector. The right-of-way requirement is 80 feet, and the cartway is 48 feet. The applicant has labeled the 50-foot right-of-way of Conestoga Road. So did you say you were requesting a waiver from that, or you will comply
Well,
with
actually,
it?
I don't even know if we need a waiver, Steve. I mean, I have the right-of-way chart from the township here that indicates Conestoga Road is a 50-foot right-of-way. So we're not changing anything. I don't know. If we need a waiver, we need a waiver, but I don't think we really need a waiver.
I think you do, because when you go to our saldo, you look that up, and it says this is what it's supposed to be. That's my thought.
Well, I think really that's for when you're building a large subdivision, not a one-lot thing. But if we need a waiver for that, we would request a waiver for that. I really don't think it's needed, but again, since it's an existing right-of-way already on Conestoga Road, which is a state highway, but
They're all
if it's
existing.
more comfortable for a waiver requirement, we would request a waiver for it then too. Because I don't think the township wants to take additional right-of-way and pay compensation for it either, but.
I don't think that would be required, Mr. Cornelia, but that's a different argument.
We could be here for a couple hours discussing that one.
That's why we bring counsel to all the meetings.
And then on Gilmore's comments, I don't think there's any dispute with that. We need an HOP permit from the Department of Transportation. And we agree with everything else as far as the grading of the highway. And we also agree, number 4 in the Gilmore comments is an ADA compliant ramp at Doyle and Conestoga, and the applicant is willing to install that.
The only thing you're potentially asking for as waivers is the 50-foot number 4, and just the 80-foot waiver on Conestoga Road. The other waiver, the township one's okay? He doesn't need it for that one?
The 2, Mr. Cochran.
Which other number is
Conestoga
that?
and Doyle?
And I'm saying also Doyle, he doesn't need a waiver on Doyle. You already have that there?
I believe he needs a waiver request for
Yes,
both, plus the mapping.
It's a waiver request for both streets.
Okay. Then you need a waiver for both streets, the 80 and the 60.
But if I may address the planning commission, so the plan that's been submitted is almost sketch level plan. It's missing contour lines, charts. If you just go through the roulette, there's not a lot of comments, but those comments are very big. You don't see contours, you can't tell if there's steep slopes. Zoning table has to be adjusted. My recommendation to the planning commission, and it's just a recommendation, is these plans should meet those, what Mr. Cornelius is saying, they will comply. They should come back to you, so you're seeing a full set of plans as opposed to sketch level plans.
They got to come back. The bottom line is.
That's just a recommendation to the
Okay.
planning commission.
Well, no,
whatever
I
you
agree
feel.
with that. This
No,
is
we've already had this discussion
Yes.
in previous months that the plans got to come back done before we're going to pass on them. We went through that before.
Correct. I mean, that's been what we've been talking about for a
Yep.
few months.
Yep.
There's more than minor change,
But
minor
we've had,
additions.
we had a couple of issues about like this,
Yeah.
and we finally said, okay, enough's enough. We really want to see the plans in the state that they should be in when they come to us. And I agree with your comments, because I noticed that when I looked at it, that there's simply too many things missing. I mean, we might be able to not worry about what's around 500 feet and all that. We let that go usually on a pretty regular basis. But for the rest of it, Nick, I really think it has to be like that.
I was just talking. Normally, Roger, how much time do you want to review?
What's that?
How much time would you need to review on, once all this data was provided?
What's the date of the February meeting? Do we know? I don't have it.
February 3rd, I believe.
You get it to me 2 weeks before that, we can have something. We get their packets out a week before the meeting, so I need at least a week.
Okay, we would request that it be tabled until the February 3rd meeting, and I'll give the township or however many day extension from today to February 3rd.
Okay, can I have a
I move we table the hearing until February 3rd or the next planning commission in case it gets postponed or something.
Right.
the next, yeah. A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're going to get all new plans, right, Nick? Nick, we're going to get all new plans? Okay.
Well, it'll be plans showing all the data that. It has to show contours, and it's pretty flat. I don't think there's any issues, but, yeah. And we probably should make a waiver request for those items, too. In your letter. See, I still don't think it's a waiver because this is the township can. I'm going to keep.
Not really. Is there any, I think that disposes of all of the items before us this evening. Is there any old business? Not hearing any comments. Is there any new business? Then
I move we adjourn.
we are adjourned.